Welcome back, everybody. Once again, this is Mark Lawrence, and we're all set to go March Madness crazy on the Against the Spread podcast today here on the Proline TV network. And joining us on the show as we do each and every week. Right now, Jim Feist is a little bit on hiatus. We don't know if he'll be with us or not, but we do have from Las Vegas himself, Andy Iskoe. Andy, I know you're keying in on these women's basketball games right now as we speak.
Something to follow during coffee and donuts, because the first men's game doesn't start until I think 1:30 Pacific time today, when we have the start of the very cleverly named Arch Madness in the Missouri Valley.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Home of the Arch. Exactly. Greg,
home of the unders the last couple of years.
Oh, that tournament under, yeah.
That's not a surprise.
I think all of them but one game last year stayed under. By the way, games do not go under. They stay under. They start under and they stay under until or unless they go over.
Or the other end of it is they go over, right? Stay under or go over.
Correct, yes.
I'll remember
or push.
that in my phrase.
You learn something every day, Mark.
That's our English grammar lesson for the day.
Greg, how's it going, bud? You getting ready for the big March Madness right around the corner here as well?
Well, I've been ready for the last couple of months ever since football season ended. So yeah, I've been ready. But what I'm really excited about now is every day now it seems like there's a big trade in the NFL, free agency. Even though it begins on Wednesday, Monday's the day that we're going to find out about everything. All the biggest deals will be made on Monday. So Monday is going to be a major deal in the NFL. I mean, and it's like, just imagine if you're if what's his name? The Bills coach that was fired.
Sean McDermott.
Sean McDermott. Just imagine if you're McDermott today and you see the news that comes out that the Bills traded for DJ Moore. You're going, you got to be fucking kidding me. I've been here with this terrible, the general manager can't go out and get me our offense and proper skill position receivers for my all-world quarterback. And as soon as they fire me, that's the first thing they do. They go out and finally make a trade for a wide receiver.
Well, I guess it would be head-scratching time, but I would also not be surprised if they did just that. It's sort of like out with McDermott, in with a new regime, a new look for that football program here. Are these big moves that are going to be announced?
By the way, that one was reported this morning. It's reported, meaning it's going to occur, but probably hasn't been officially everything cleared yet. Maybe he has to wait for a physical or something for DJ Moore.
So is everything happening in reflection of the franchise tagging and transitional tagging, or is this all just a process and this is a period of time? Why are there going to be trades coming up here real soon?
Well, like Andy said, these aren't going to be officially on the books until the league year begins.
Right.
And that happens, I believe, on Wednesday. Yeah. But again, so you can make these trades whenever you want. Right now, you just can't make it official until Wednesday. And then the same thing with the free agency. The franchise tag window was Tuesday. So that's it. Now there's only 3 players, I believe, that got the tag. And then now we're dealing with the free agent market. That's going to be a Wild West show on Monday.
And yesterday, I think it was the Chiefs traded or about to trade cornerback Trent McDuffie to the Rams. So the Rams getting stronger on defense, which is probably one of the few areas that they needed to improve on. Yeah. I'll tell you what was interesting. Let's talk about DJ Moore. I forget the name. The Bears center suddenly retired. Announced his retirement, I think, yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And apparently it had nothing to do with an injury. He played, I think they said, every snap last year, but I forget his name because I just glanced over it. His father also played in the NFL, also went to Stanford, and they were sort of taking a look like Andrew Luck was one who quit early, but his was because of injuries and everything. And I think they said one of the things in the article I briefly read was that the center was concerned about some of the prolonged effects of all the hits that you take, down the road, the CTE and all that.
Hey, sure.
And he had just signed a huge extension before last season. And, it's surprising given the fact, and I have no qualms with what he's decided. He's got to look after his health and his family.
Yep.
But it's interesting because the Bears are a team that's on the rise, and that's a team that I think anyone who could have an opportunity to play for Chicago this coming season would jump at the opportunity.
Was that Drew Dahlman? Is that who that was? That retired?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's from Stanford, so he's not going to have a problem figuring out the world.
Well, he wants
money to good use.
He wants to make sure he doesn't have that problem. And look, I mean, realistically, whatever, even if you play in the NFL for a year or two, you have made enough money to secure a good lifestyle for your family for years to come. And then you figure about all the opportunities you're going to get to go on speaking tours or whatever, let's say in the Chicago area in his case and all that. So he's set nicely for life. And of course, that Stanford degree opens a lot of windows, and I wouldn't be, or doors, I guess. And I would not be surprised if he's interested. He ends up, as a lot of ex-players do, in the media.
Rather young too, I think, guys.
27, I think.
Yeah, there you go. Wow, he pulled an Andrew Luck, basically, is what he did. Stanford retired early. It must be in the water at Stanford.
Luck was, I think, because of injuries that he had sustained.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
He, Dahlman, I think, was aware of the injury risk. And, look, if you play every snap, which is very, very unusual for, centers and offensive linemen perhaps, but it's still a rarity to play every single snap when you're talking about, 60 snaps a game for, 17, 18, 19 games when you make the playoffs and all that. That's a lot of not concussion possibilities that you have. And he's looking out for his future. And like Greg said, that Stanford degree is probably will be. Look, who knows? He may take like an Andrew Luck situation. Who think what's Luck now? He's like, I think, the equivalent of a GM at Stanford. So you might see Dahlman in a similar position, maybe even with the Bears.
Wow. Well, the football won't let its sport go to sleep during the NCAA, man. As you know, they'll have their PR team working out there to keep their name alive in front of the public.
NFL is brilliant that way, by the way. You have the Super Bowl. A few weeks later, you got the combine. A few weeks later, you got free agency. A few weeks later, you have the draft. A few weeks after that, you release the schedule. And then right after that, teams are starting they're in the midst of the OTAs and getting ready for the season. So football is really, and they've done a very good job of being in the news literally 12 months out of the year. Yeah,
24/7. It seems.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, guys, let's get over to the NCAA tournament. I know we got 2 weeks. We're going to tip things off here. A lot is beginning to formulate right now as we're speaking here about who these top teams are going to be, who the top 4 seeds are going to be. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're looking at the likes of Duke and Michigan, Arizona, and who's the other?
Right now they're saying UConn, but I wouldn't be surprised if Florida ends up.
Florida, I was going to say Florida, right? Because there's some wins UConn has had maybe earlier in the season that weren't all that impressive.
Yeah.
Maybe they're getting a little bit better coming down the stretch here right now. Greg,
is this Ken? Yeah, Ken Palm. You're showing up there on the screen now. Yeah.
Yes.
Top 4. Yeah.
That's Ken Palm's top 4. And, while we're there talking about it, I'm going to share with everybody, I've mentioned this the last 2 shows, but it needs to be talked about. His teams, when they do rank up both in top efficiency and offensively and defensively, they've only lost 1 NCAA tournament since 2002, the teams that come from that list here. And that teams from that list right now are Duke, Michigan, Arizona, and Houston. Who don't surprise at all. We just talked about them being the top 4 teams. Michigan is the only team in the top 5, both offensively and defensively, with team efficiency. Does that surprise you, Greg? Is Michigan for real this basketball season?
Well, I think when we talked about it last week, the thing that really impressed everybody and should have is that the way in which Michigan has blown out a quite number of the teams they played, including quality teams like Purdue and Illinois on the road. I mean, they've just annihilated these teams. So you don't do it with just offense. I mean, they're not Alabama, So yeah, it's a full effort. It's offense, it's defense. They've got size. They've got a point guard. Everything's clicking, and this is almost a new team too. There's several holdovers. Some key guys that help them out, but for the most part, they're like this because of the transfer portal. They hit on like 4 home runs on the transfer portal. And that's the new day and age that we're dealing with today. But yeah, right now, I think what we're seeing too, I mean, Duke destroying Virginia, Duke destroying North Carolina State, Michigan with their big wins. It's almost like we're getting to the point now. It's like, all right, well, I guess let's just wait until Michigan and Duke in the Final Four, and Florida, if they keep playing like this, they'll be in the Final Four. And the only question is, will Arizona get there? And so we're going to probably see a lot of big blowouts once again, unfortunately, early on in the first week of the college basketball tournament, because I think we're already seeing some of that happen right now. I mean, watching teams that need to win, like Texas, go to Arkansas as a 7-point road dog and get annihilated when Arkansas needs nothing to do with that game. Nothing. And Texas has everything on the line, and they get destroyed. And you got like Indiana can't beat Northwestern at home. I think they even lost to Maryland, and yet they go ahead and they handle and beat a couple of good teams, and they just blew out Minnesota.
Say the same thing about SMU last night, hosting Miami. SMU. Miami's securely in there. And Mark, I saw the thing for the podcast agenda today, and you got SMU as avoiding the bye, and I don't know that that's the case anymore. They needed that. They needed that win. And then you take a look at a team like Ohio State, which was questionable, and they go over to Penn State. Yeah, Penn State's not a good team, but still, it's a conference game. It's on the road, and they blow out Penn State wire to wire. So, you look at a lot of those teams at this time of the year, and even though they're not true critical games, elimination games per se, because they don't meet that definition because their season's going to continue. But how do teams do when they're in quote unquote what we would call must-win situations? Not literal must-win situations, but when you're playing with the because remember, these are humans who decide who's going to make the tournament and not. So it's not like you have to accumulate a certain number of things. You try to accumulate as much as you can and hope the committee sides with you. But in a situation like that, like you talked about Texas, who's in a very competitive conference, but they're remember, some of these teams in these conferences are also playing for a double bye by being seeded 1 through 4, or a single bye and being sided 5 through 8. Then there are other teams that are looking just to get in the position where they might be able to make an at-large bid. Now, if you're in the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC, they're looking at 8 to 10 teams, in those conferences. But if you're in that like 7 to 11 category, nothing is secure, and you've got to win these games at the end, especially on senior night when you're at home.
When you talk about 8 to 10 teams, Andy, look inside the Big 10 here. Michigan plays Iowa tonight. We're doing this podcast on Thursday. They're sitting there with this big, fat 3-game lead. They've already clinched first place in the Big 10 standings. They will be the number 1 seed. And I used to love to do that, to fade these teams that had these number 1 seeds in their back pocket. But now, suddenly, you're talking about where they'll be seated in the big dance. Do you think that Michigan could go into Iowa tonight and perhaps maybe look past the Hawkeyes and instead look forward to the Big 10 tournament?
Yeah, they could. I think that they still want to go out and win and maintain their momentum. That the time that you really look for those teams to sort of take it easy, let's say Michigan is virtually assured a number 1 seed, if not the number 1 seed between them and Duke, at least right now. But where they normally, if they're going to quote unquote coast, and I really don't believe it, but maybe they don't put up their best effort, would be once they win one game, especially in the case of Michigan, where they're going to get a couple of byes, where they win their first game in the tournament and then say, okay, that's fine. We'll take the extra couple of days of rest because, the Big 10 is actually one of the tournaments that is played on Selection Sunday. So, if you're Michigan and if you win your games up through Saturday, I think they start Friday and then they'll play on Saturday and then the championship game. So if they win on Saturday and they've gotten their 2 wins in the tournament, they might rest it, because if you're playing a game on Sunday, you could theoretically just have 3 days of rest if you're playing on that opening Thursday. So that's when highly seeded teams that are likely to be a 1 or perhaps a number 2 seed might just, I'm not going to say take it easy or certainly not tank, but maybe give some of the reserves, some of the players who may be called upon if some of the starters get in foul trouble in the tournament, give them a little bit of experience in playing what is an important game, not necessarily for them, but for the team they're facing who's looking to win the Big 10 title. And let's say I'll use Purdue. Michigan State is a big rival, but let's say it's Purdue. Let's say Purdue is playing for the Big 10 title and an improving seed. Michigan may want to give their guys rest because the game doesn't mean anything to Michigan it means a lot more to Purdue, even though they're in the field, even though they're not playing well. But those are the situations that I look for come conference tournament time amongst the major conferences.
Well, would you not think then that using that same thought that Michigan playing Iowa tonight, Iowa sitting on 20 wins, perhaps arguably on the bubble, I think they'll be in the tournament. Could they look at all past Iowa in that same vein, in that same sense?
Yeah, they might take it a little easy. They've got again, when they probably Michigan. Well, do they play Saturday or is this the last regular season
Michigan?
game?
I think they have one more game after this.
Okay, yeah. They might just take it a little bit easy here because my thought was if this was their last game, they might go for a little bit more of an effort so they don't get a lot of rust because they won't be playing until next Thursday or Friday. But if they're playing Saturday, going Saturday to Thursday is not a big deal. They're used to that in the regular season. So I could see certainly it's a big game. What's the line on that game?
8.5, I think.
Yes, 8.5, right.
Well, here's the problem, though.
I would tend to take Iowa, but I'm not sure I will.
Yeah, the problem is, and again, I guess this is a problem only if you're depending on what side you're on. But what I was just referencing before, I don't think I could take the rest of the season or go against any of these top teams anymore. And that would be Michigan, Florida, Duke. I'm just if I was gonna take games, and I know there's only a couple of games left, and then they got the tournaments. I would just take it. Take them in every game because they're going to blow everybody out. And it doesn't matter. Like we just said, Duke went to North Carolina State and North Carolina State needed the game. It didn't matter. Duke didn't need the game. They blew them out. Yeah. It's just but there's only some of those teams. It's Michigan, Florida, Duke. I don't know if I can trust Arizona yet, but they're right there. They're very close. But those three teams, I would either stay away and not touch the game because there's no way I would go against Michigan, Duke, or Florida right now. No way. I don't care what the situation is.
Has the Arizona line to win the NCAA tournament come down any at all since the injury to Pete has him playing in that lineup once again?
Not really. It's almost at 5-1 now. So Florida is still the best bargain here.
Yeah, of those 6 you're showing, it's clearly Florida.
Yeah, because they're getting more than double than Duke and Michigan, and they're every bit as good as Duke and Michigan. So they're the team to take advantage of right now.
Houston might be attractive at 10-1 because of their defense, notwithstanding their recent play. But remember, this is a team that made it to the final game against Florida, lost by 2 last year, and they were sitting at about 7 or 8-1 about 2 weeks ago.
Well. Now, Greg, I'm going to try and trip you up here a little bit here. We talked about Michigan and how good they are. In fact, they're the only Power 4 conference team that is undefeated on the road this year. Yet there is another undefeated FBS, or I should say FBS. Well, let me use the old phrase, Andy, Division I school.
Yes.
That is also undefeated away from home this year. Who would that be, Greg?
Well, that's easy. That's Miami.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay.
It's the team that's also undefeated at home.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
and any neutral sites.
Right.
I think they have to be in now because they just continue. I mean, even in these games lately, they've been in close games. They've been down late, and that's showing a lot of guts for them to keep winning games. It's not like they play in the Northeast. The MAC is still a halfway decent mid-major conference. So at this point, if they were to lose in the conference championship, they got to get in. They have to.
Well, it's a different situation, but for the last, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks, every game Miami has been playing has been the game of the year for their opponent.
For sure.
They want to be the one to knock off Miami of Ohio. Several have come close, including the other night, but no one's managed to do it. I know a lot of people, and Mark, you probably know it from your Ohio ties, a lot of people are looking at Ohio University to be the team to pull off that upset tomorrow night, especially with Ohio being on spring break and a lot of folks from Miami making that trip over to Oxford from Oxford to
Athens,
Athens, yeah, to watch the what are they, the Red Hawks? Miami,
the Red Hawks, right?
Yeah, fall.
Well, the problem here, I think, for Miami could be, aside from the Fat Albert theory at work here against Miami going undefeated, this probably couldn't be the worst opponent they could draw for this particular game, and that would be their arch rival, Ohio University, where they've lost 11 straight games in a row in that gym. I'm looking at possibly.
And by the way, Miami's been a very solid program for many, many years, going back to what, Charlie Cole, and even before that.
Exactly.
Wally Zerbiak.
Wally Zerbiak. Oh, yeah, exactly right. Can we throw in Ben Roethlisberger from Miami as well?
We could do that. Sure.
He's big enough to have played on the basketball team.
There we go. He probably would have been a star on the basketball team too, as well. I would.
Yeah, he probably would have fouled out after about 6 minutes. Physicality.
All right, Andy, I'm going to throw this out to you. It's NCAA tournament time. What team are you going to look at as a sleeper, if for nothing else, just to make it to the Sweet 16, one to get in the tournament and perhaps to go as far as the Sweet 16?
Well, I guess that would probably mean a team that is currently projected not to be a top 4 or 5 seed right now.
I would say, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I know Arkansas is a very popular team. One of the teams you've got listed there right now. How about Virginia? They're having I don't know where they are. They're probably on a top 4 line, I would say. But I'm looking at those 90-1 odds. That's pretty nice odds for Virginia, where if you make it to the Sweet 16, you can probably do a little bit of hedging at that point.
I like that choice, Andy. They're playing as good to basketball as they have all season long.
Another team that also struggled early and is listed right below it is Wisconsin.
Yeah, I like Wisconsin. Wisconsin's for real. That's the team, and not just because of the win against Michigan, but that was a team that when I looked at them at the beginning of the season, I felt that they had enough talent, they got good coaching, and it took them a while. It really did. It took them a while, but they're playing good enough ball this season that you would have to believe that they, depending on the bracket, they could make that type of run.
Yeah.
All right, guys, and where do we fit St. Louis into this whole mix here? And, in the days of the old mid-major, they'd be the team we'd be talking about here this year with their record, with their stats offensively and defensively. Nobody plays better shooting defense than St. Louis does. Can they make a Sweet 16 run, the Pelicans?
Yes.
Their strength? What's their strength of schedule outside the conference?
Let me put it up.
Did they play UConn earlier?
Let's see. St.
They
Louis.
They played some major school early in the season, I believe.
Where are they? There they are. 31.
31 is their strength of schedule?
Strength of schedule. Let's see. This is it. This is the ratings, I guess, the way they put it here. Yeah. Strength of schedule. So I don't know what these are like. I guess those
non-conference strength of schedule, the far right column.
I'm sure it's softer.
Yeah, that's the problem. No question about it, that they haven't been battle tested.
Yeah.
But they were supposed to, when they were looked at as one of the teams to beat before the season began. And, they've handled so far the teams that they've had to, including VCU. I don't even know if VCU was a team.
Yeah, where does VCU show up on that strength of schedule? Because St. Louis is 309, so there it is.
46.
They're 221. Yeah, 40. Well, I'm looking at the strength of schedule on the right, the non-conference strength of schedule, 221. That's a lot better than St. Louis, and I think they're only separated by a game in the conference. But I want to see what VCU.
Yeah, their best win this year is against a bubble team, Santa Clara. That's it. And then they also beat VCU, as I mentioned. I think they might have swept VCU, actually. I don't know if they played them twice. I got to see that because I don't know. Maybe they're playing
VCU won 71-62 at home against St. Louis. And in the rematch, it was St. Louis winning 88-75. That was just about a week or so ago. 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
What a nice job by Phil Martelli Jr. And the father was a terrific coach at St. Joe's. In fact, I think he's even on the staff, the father is.
I believe so, yeah. I would say if there's a mid-major team other than the West Coast, I think the West Coast has a real good chance of getting 3 teams in St. Mary's, Santa Clara, and Gonzaga. I could see the Atlantic 10 getting St. Louis and VCU in there if the committee wants to be a little generous with some of those at-large bids.
I agree. Ben, I guess would that make it just the one team from the MAC? If let's assume that Miami does not win the championship. They lose in the finals. Akron takes them down.
Yeah.
Do they take two teams from the MAC, or do they take two teams, as you mentioned here?
I would say that if Miami goes undefeated, they win that game against Ohio, and they make it to the finals and lose in the Mid-American Conference, I would take Miami over, let's say, VCU as a second as the runner-up in the Atlantic 10 tournament
for their body of work this season.
Yeah.
Right. And deservedly so.
Yeah.
Deservedly so. It's just
I don't know what Miami's strength of schedule is, because I don't have their. Let me see if I can find their schedule up here right now.
Unfortunately, as we know, it's not very good. They didn't play anybody.
I wonder where it rates compared to St. Louis, which is at 320 or something. Yeah, 360. Yeah, well, there goes that argument. There's only 365 teams. And their non-conference strength of schedule all the way on the right is 360, I think you said.
So there's a team for every day of the week is what you're saying, Andy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, 365. Wow.
The big question we're going to find out is Santa Clara. They're going to be playing St. Mary's in the semis.
Yeah.
It looks like St. Mary's is going to be fine no matter what. So
what's their schedule in the far right column?
106.90.
Okay. No, the one more column that's just out of view.
91st, 106.6.
No, I'm showing the +4 something.
Oh, 405.
Scroll to the right. Yeah.
Yeah, 0.405. 4.05.
Yeah, what's the number to the right of that?
Letting me. I can't scroll over.
Oh, okay.
I have to move this over to see if I can scroll over.
The number to the right of that?
Yeah, that's the strength of rank. That's the rank.
91. 91st.
Yeah, that's below average. Well, that's their non-conference. When you take a look at their overall strength of schedule, it's probably pretty good because of the games against Gonzaga and St. Mary's.
Well, I think they're going to have to beat St. Mary's, though. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to get them in, because that would be then that would be 1 and 4 against the top two teams, and I'm not sure that's good enough, especially with one of those wins at home.
And I think I think St. Mary's is in because of that win at Gonzaga.
Yeah, I would believe so. So
against Gonzaga, it was at home for St. Mary's.
Well, the teams that look like they don't pass the litmus test as far as these strength of schedules go, amongst the big boys, would be the Houston Cougars. I think what are they, number 165, and also Iowa State.
Well, remember that's non-conference.
Okay.
But the fact that they play in the Big 12 is I don't know if
that
they have the
beefs
overall
everything
rating.
Right.
Whereas the overall rating for Houston is 37, which includes that weak non-conference, because they're playing all these teams in the Big 12 and they're knocking each other off.
Yeah, they're just battling all the big boys is what they're doing.
Yeah, that's why I was a little bit concerned with Iowa State until they won those two big back-to-back home games a couple of weeks ago, because as you can see here, they played nobody in the non-conference schedule.
Yeah.
And but then they showed it. They proved it, and they got those big wins. And so, they're still going to be a dangerous team. And here's more. And then the one time it did work, where you had a team that really didn't have anything to play for, and another team that had everything to play for, and they actually had a really nice win, was TCU beating Texas Tech on the road. So I think TCU's in now, because they've had some really good wins this year.
I think they take over for their crosstown rival SMU, who I think, Mark, you showed in the thing, they were a first-round bye, meaning they were in the tournament, but didn't have to play in the play-in game, the 11th seed.
Right. I
think SMU was at 8 or 9. They may still be in, but that was an ugly loss last night.
Oh, they better not be.
Well, that could drop them down to the first four, I guess, if they
that would be the 11th seed.
Yeah, TCU is let's see, they beat Florida, they beat Wisconsin, they beat Texas Tech, and they only had a 4-point loss to Michigan.
Yeah.
So
that's TCU. That's
TCU.
That probably still has them in, but those are very impressive wins when you look at it. So maybe they don't drop as far down as the 11. Maybe they go to the 10, which would be a break, because then you would face the 2 seed rather than the 1 seed if you made it that far.
And then the team that embarrassed themselves was Central Florida, because they've got some nice wins. They beat they've beaten Texas Tech. They just had a nice win last week. I forget who it was against.
BYU. Was that the blowout at BYU?
Oh, they at BYU, correct. So they've had 3 good wins. And then they're at home against Baylor, who's done nothing all season, and they can't beat Baylor at home. I mean, you're a bubble team, and you can't beat Baylor at home. I mean, this is why we said this. Those 20 teams that are going to get in from
one of those pre-conference tests that show you how legitimate they are. Yeah.
And they're not. And that's why there's going to be a lot of phony teams in this tournament. And it's just a matter of staying away from the phony ones and taking those 5 or 6 that you think has a good chance, like you were asking questions about who can make the Sweet 16. Yeah, there are going to be some teams that definitely qualify, and I think at TCU is one of them, that if you get the right, when we look at the brackets, if they get the right matchups, then these are the handful of teams. So we're going to go over this, don't forget, on our Monday special.
And Greg, by the way, one of the teams that you mentioned earlier that I have concerns about, and I've had concerns about all year, is as far as being an earlier than expected, because they've excelled at that in recent years, and that's Purdue. Earlier than expected exit.
Let me ask you guys this. There's a lot of love out there right now for Illinois. They've kind of surged and then went back, and now that looks like they're gaining the love again. And if you check out their quad rankings in quad 1 games, they're only 8-6 in those basketball games.
That's the 1 and 2, right?
Right.
That's the quad. And isn't most of those wins come in the quad 2 games?
Well, they're 8-6 in quad 1 games, 6-1 in quad 2s. I think every one of these teams that come from these 4 major conferences all chew up quad 2 teams. I think they're good teams do.
Well, the fact that if you take a look at a quad 1 team as being a team that is capable of making the Sweet 16, and you're 8-6 against those teams, that's a pretty good record. But first of all, you're playing 14. That's basically half your schedule against quad 1 teams, and you're winning more than half those games.
Yeah, that's why
Illinois is dangerous.
That's another.
The only thing is recently they have cooled off a little bit. They've had some overtime losses.
Oh, they had that ugly game against was it USC?
No, that was.
Was that the big win or was it USC where they had that big lead and lost by 1 or something?
I'm not sure about. It could have been UCLA.
UCLA.
That was the one where they allowed the point guard to go coast to coast.
Right.
With
Tyus Edney Jr.
Yes, and they lost that game at the wire, and then they got blown out by Michigan at home. Yeah. So they have cooled off a little bit, but they've played so many good teams.
That game against Michigan. Was that the one that right after the UCLA game?
Could have been. Yeah.
Because if so, that's the kind of game that you lose twice, where you lose a game that you should have won, and then there's a carryover effect into the next game. I think that's what Illinois. If indeed that was the case, that would explain the Illinois.
And then UCLA had a much needed win against Nebraska, big win, blowout win. So I think they're in good shape now, thanks to that win. Again, that's what I'm saying. There are some teams that you look at. Oh, matter of fact, we've talked the last couple of weeks about the Mountain West. Colorado State is now back to being a legitimate Mountain West tournament team because they have won 8 straight. I got them last night as a 3-1 money line play at New Mexico.
Nice play, very nice.
And they win that one. I mean, they're on a roll, and
they won comfortably.
They won
at New Mexico, which is a very difficult place to play.
Yes, it is.
And it's like the thing is the top teams, Utah State, San Diego State, and New Mexico now have kind of come down a little, and Colorado State is the one team that's firing up. So
so is UNLV, but they started in the
it's too
very, very low. But that was a very impressive blowout win against a Utah State team that's been the best team in the conference since the start of the year and lost on their home court to UNLV about a month or so ago. Not that UNLV is going to do anything other than that game, other than the tournament is being played at the
That'll be a good one. That'll be a fun tournament. There'll be a lot of volatility in that tournament because I don't know how many teams are going to make it.
No, there's some talk that maybe only one team will, although I think right now Colorado State has probably done enough that if they can certainly make it to the championship game and they end up losing to, say, a Utah State, they might get an at-large bid. Yeah, a lot of the folks here in Vegas know, and they've been doing it over the last few years. It sort of didn't work a couple of years ago when San Diego State made it to the championship, but they were playing the under the number of total wins by Mountain West Conference teams, because Mountain West generally has not had great success in the NCAA tournament over the last
well, how many
16
teams do you
years.
guys put into the tournament out of the Mountain West? 2 or 3?
I'd say 2 at most.
2 at most at this point. Yeah.
So then it would be between New Mexico and Colorado State, I would guess, correct?
Well, I think they've played the best in the last month, but Utah State and San Diego State a month ago were the 2 best.
Yes.
So that's why it's going to be.
And Boise's been making a nice little run.
And Boise and UNLV can both make trouble in the tournament. So that's why I'm saying it's going to be a wide open tournament. I think if Utah State gets to the championship game and loses, we could get 2 teams. I think they have the best chance to get the at-large because they've been in first place all year, and they've just had a little bit of a slip up lately. So,
well, the only thing that may hurt them is being swept as badly as they were. 2 double-digit losses as double-digit favorites against UNLV, especially late in the season. UNLV is what? They're probably a quad 3 team.
I'm not sure. I mean, Utah State right here is 28 overall, which is a good spot to be in. Yeah. If you want to get an at-large regarding the quads, again, I don't know how they rank these, but I think they have it as an 8 seed. I think that's what this is for. So that's why I said I think Utah is, as long as they don't keep losing, I think they have a good chance of, like I said, get to the championship 41. Game. Yeah, and Mexico is the other team. That would be the other one.
UNLV is 43. So
unfortunately, their record isn't as good.
They're 1-1. Well, that tells me that Utah State is not a quad 1 team, because UNLV would be 2-0 against Utah State. So Utah State must be a quad 2
Can't they vary,
team.
guys, between being a quad 1 and a quad 2 at whatever time they played that game and what their record was? They could vary.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I thought the quad rankings are based upon the current moment. In other words, you may have gone 18-1 in pre-conference play, so you're going to get a great record up there regardless of who you played, because you're 18-1. Kind of like the old RPI. Your record counts for a lot regardless of the quality of the competition.
Yeah,
that's a good question. Your opponent. So I believe that the quad 1 rankings, all the quads, are based upon your current ranking, and of course taking into account the opponents you played and where they are currently ranked, not where they were at the time you played them. I may be wrong, but I'll see if I can find out on that.
Well, that makes sense. It just means just keep winning games, and your quad ranking will stay high, or be higher than it was when you weren't winning games.
You see, these are all 8 teams, and I know, and we didn't even mention Nevada and Grand Canyon, who also can win a couple of games in this tournament. So there's 8 of these teams. See, the problem with UNLV is they're 16-14. Yeah, and that's why they got no chance.
That's why I was suggesting they might be a quad 3 team.
Okay.
I don't know.
But other than that, all these other teams have 19 wins or more. So a couple of wins, you get to 21, 22, championship game, and you might be able to get 2 teams out of the Mountain West championship. So I'm real interested to see when the brackets come out, who's playing who in the Mountain West tournament. And this is going to be a good tournament to try to make some money on too, because you're going to have at least a couple of teams that are going to have good odds.
Yeah, capable of winning the tournament, sure.
So can Utah State lose its number 1 seed? I know they're a game up on New Mexico and San Diego State, but do they own the tiebreakers? Would they lose the number 1 seed? That's the question.
I don't know what their how many more games left they have.
They have one more game.
Right.
They do. Do you know who they're playing?
Utah State. Let me see here.
They're going to be playing New Mexico.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good one.
At home against New Mexico. That'll be a good game.
Okay, the 2 top teams.
Yep, a lot on the line there for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I think this might be one of the most interesting conferences for a conference tournament play.
Especially because the team that seemed to be the clear winner of the conference is playing some of its weakest basketball right now, and that's Utah State. And everybody else not a huge difference. I mean, you look at 11-8. You got the top 2, Utah State and New Mexico, and then 6 to 8 wins separating the next 1, 2, 3, 6 teams. In conference.
Utah State. They've lost 3 of the last 4 games, I believe. They were on a roll. But
And they lost them to, I think, teams right below them.
I've seen Nevada, San Diego State, and UNLV. Right.
Yeah, I think Boise was in there also.
Boise
No,
was in
I'm
there?
sorry, Boise. No, Boise was part of the losing streak that San Diego State has experienced lately.
Yeah, that was the last team that they beat on their winning streak, I should say.
Yeah.
That was Boise. So if this were, I don't want to say the days of old, because I obviously date myself, or Andy, you and I could date ourselves.
Yeah.
That one shining moment.
This looks like to be a legitimate mid-major conference,
Yes. That's why it's going to be a lot of fun. That's because you can't make any money off of some of these big ones, ACC, Duke, Michigan, Big 12. So you're going to have to go to one of those other conferences like the Mountain West. I think the Conference USA, or I believe, Sun Belt. Sun Belt's
Sun
wide
Belt,
open.
yeah.
So you can make a little bit of money on the Sun Belt. I'm not sure if Arkansas State might not be a bad sleeper because the odds are pretty
Well, the Sun
good.
Belt is weird. Because the Sun Belt is weird. They're playing 2 games a night, which means that the teams that won their opening round games, I forget if they've been eliminated, they would have to win 7 games in 7 days to win the conference championship in the Sun Belt.
Okay,
it's the most bizarre.
Wow,
it's the most bizarre scheduling I've ever seen.
I don't believe who would have to do that, Andy? Which teams from the bottom?
Well, I think they've already been eliminated. The 2 teams that won the opening games on what was that? That would have been on Monday night or Tuesday. That would have been on Tuesday. Let me see. Those would have been. Let's see. It would have been Georgia State and Old Dominion. I'm sorry. Louisiana Lafayette and Old Dominion. I believe both of those teams have already lost.
All right, so
The next game. Let's say the teams that won Wednesday night, I think the second round, they would have to win 6 straight.
Okay, so there's 6, 7, 8, 10 more teams left.
Yeah.
In the Sun Belt. And so, yeah, if you can, again, even though Troy should be the favorite, any of these teams, well, not any of them, but like in Arkansas State, they're more than capable.
Only problem is they are, I think, the number 10 seed.
And that's how crazy it is. They're the 10 seed.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. They're the number 7 seed.
Yeah, they got the hot
Georgia
right
Southern.
now.
The 7th seed and the 4th choice.
Yeah,
that just shows you how open this tournament is.
South Alabama is a team that I like in that conference very much.
They're 11-1.
Well. Yeah.
Arkansas State 7-1.
I don't know if you can still. I don't know if you can still bet them only because that tournament's already underway.
No, yeah, you can. Yeah, as soon as it opened at the odds.
I don't know that you can here in Vegas still.
At adjusted
Vegas.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see if I can find that out on one of my apps here.
And then a lot of these tournaments, of course, will because we between now and next week, when we do our show next Thursday, that'll be the last day that some tournaments will start.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Those are the ones that end on Sunday. Usually it's like the Big Ten. I think the SEC, maybe the ACC usually ends on Saturday. Big 12, I think, is another one that ends on Sunday. Actually, the last tournament to start is the Ivy League on Saturday.
Yeah, that little 4-game tournament or 4-team tournament, right?
Yeah. Which, by the way, the matchups are already known.
The Ivies already.
Yeah, it's going to. By the way, that tournament is played at Cornell this year. It's not because of seeding or anything. It's predetermined because it used to be at the Palestra for the first 4 or 5 years, and now they start rotating it. Cornell and Yale will play, and Penn and Dartmouth will play.
So in essence, Cornell will be a nice home dog in that basketball game, correct?
Yes, well, I imagine 6 or 7 probably.
Right.
Because they'll be the number 4 seed.
Well, but
but
if they're going to play Yale, and Yale is just too strong.
Yeah.
Yale actually wouldn't be a bad team to look at, depending on who they play in that first round game. They're capable.
Did they pull the upset last year, or did they just cover? I'm trying to remember last year.
I don't think they pulled upset last year because, as we know, I don't even know if there was more than one. Wasn't it? What was the team that pulled up that upset?
McNeese.
And I think that was it. I don't think we had any other upsets in the first round. So that's how bad it was. So yeah, I think that Yale though is capable this year because I think if they win this year, I think it'll be their 4th trip in the last 6 years.
That sounds about right.
So
And
what
yes,
do we attribute that to, guys?
we can still bet here in Vegas, by the way, at least at the Circa, the Sun Belt tournament that's still underway.
So what
was
do
that,
we
Mark?
attribute McNeese State being the sole team from the mid-majors that won a game? Is it because of the pillaging that's going on?
Yes.
With these smaller
Yes.
schools? Yes.
Absolutely. 100%. I
Well,
don't
we
think
saw-
it's going to change. I don't think
it's
we're
either.
going to see upsets this time around either.
No, it's because there are fewer mid-major teams getting at-large bids.
But even so, those teams now have to rely on Division II players, like stars in the Division II that will want an opportunity to play in Division I. And
these mid-majors are now the minor leagues for the majors.
Yes.
yeah, so it's far and few between, and that's what's going to suck. I hope I'm wrong, but I think the days of seeing big upsets on Thursday and Friday of the first week are coming to an end.
You know, I use a system book that out of my database that I use, the well-oiled machine, and the system book has always been at its best in round 2 of the NCAA tournament, and it's largely based a lot because of teams that pulled upsets in the first game. Well, there was a dearth of those last year. My goodness. And it's going to probably continue to keep being that way. So, a different approach has to be taken when it comes to handicapping the NCAA tournament.
Well, you did have Drake. I'm looking back at last year. Drake was an 11th seed out of the Missouri Valley, and they played the number 6 seed Missouri, and they beat them by 10 as a 5.5-point dog. So that would be sort of a minor upset.
What did Colorado State do?
I think they had a couple of wins here. Let me see. Well, and they actually at Westgate, they opened a 2.5-point favorite, closed at 1 despite being a number 12 seed, and they upset Memphis. Well, they didn't upset them based upon the numbers, but
so they were 12 seeds.
Yeah, they were 12. That old 12-5.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. We just got to be, and hey, we will be smart about it. That's why you're watching the show. So trust us. When we do our Monday preview on the Monday after the Selection Sunday, it'll be at night. We'll let you know probably next week what time it'll be, because when we talk next week, we'll only be 4 days away from Selection Sunday.
Yeah. By the way, New Mexico was a number 10 seed, and they upset, as a 4.5-point underdog, they upset Marquette, which was a number 7 seed.
Yeah, not an earth-shaking upset, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
And that got that coach the job in where did he go? He went from New Mexico to where did he go?
Who was the coach there last year? Was that Richard Pitino? No.
Yes.
What?
It was. He's in the Big Ten now.
at Minnesota.
No, that's the Nico Medved guy. He's in the Big East.
Xavier, I think, isn't it?
Okay, maybe that's it, because he's in the Big East now. He's with his father. Yeah.
McNeese State was the biggest upset as a 12, which is the upset seed for the most part. And remember, if you're seeded at number 12, you are going to be a conference champion in one of the lower tiered conferences, okay? And you're facing probably a
disappointed team.
Yeah, a 5th or 6th place team in a major conference.
Who is disappointed because something bottomed out for them to finish there as opposed to
as a 5 seed. Yeah,
exactly. Unless they close like a bat out of hell, to get there, but that's usually not the case.
Well, I was looking at it just a little bit before, and they were showing again, remember we talked about Villanova being like a 7 seed. There are going to be 6, 7, 8 seeds that can easily lose in the first round. And they're going to be taking on, 12, 13, 11 seeds. And so trust me, there'll be some really good opportunities and again, I don't know if there'll be upsets. It all depends on the lines. But there will be, higher seeded teams, or lower seeded teams, I should say, that are going to beat higher seeded teams this year. I have no doubt about that. I just don't know if there'll be considered upsets.
Yeah. If they're too good, too popular, and too wise, too much of a wise guy team, instead of getting the usual 8, 10, 12 points you would have gotten, you may be talking about 5 or 6 points here this year. Because they're all going to know about these other teams for sure.
One of the things I like to do, Mark, and I don't know if you or Greg do this, is just a sort of a an intuitive type guide is when you have these conference tournaments, I like to take a look at what the conference records are between the different seeds when they face each other. And the example will be actually, I think it's the first game today in the Missouri Valley between Drake and Southern Illinois. Okay, usually there's not a huge gap between a lot of the teams. Team that wins the conference might be 14-4, then you got a 13-5, etc. Well, in the Missouri Valley Conference, the 8-9 seeds, Southern Illinois is 10-10 in conference play. Drake, the team they're playing as a number 9 seed, is 6-14. A 4-game gap is huge, and I'm just wondering if that might not be something that you want to take a look at. Southern Illinois is the 8th seed. They're favored by 4.5 over Drake. I think Drake, let me see what these teams did in their season. Okay, I think they split their season meeting. I know that the last time these teams played each other, let me see here, Southern Illinois and Drake. Southern Illinois won February 18th at Drake. And let me see if they played earlier in the year. Because sometimes, Drake beat them at Southern Illinois. They lost at home 76-73 to Drake, and then in the rematch at Drake, Southern Illinois won that game 66-61. So the spread is actually reasonable, but their overall conference play is something that suggests Southern Illinois is the much better team, and they're getting a favorable draw playing the number 9 seed instead of playing a team that might be a little bit better than them or equivalent to them.
Yeah, we break this down in this week's Playbook basketball newsletter. We had a little bit of a mini preview of the tournaments that are ongoing right now, and within each conference, there's a breakdown of who the best and who the worst seeds have been inside the conference. There are trends. There's no question about it. But it's interesting. For instance, I'm looking at number 1 seeded favorites in the West Coast Conference. They're 11-1 to the spread the last 12 games. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking for,
which basically means you're talking Gonzaga or St. Mary's.
Yes, exactly. The big boys. Exactly.
I think they played 14 of the last 15 conference tournaments.
Gonzaga I think Gonzaga has been to the finals in every tournament, every game inside that tournament. The finals, not win it, but has been there.
No. And they've won most of them.
Yes, and that's the legacy, that they'll leave behind when they leave that conference and finally go to whatever will be a revamped new Pac-12.
Pac-12 will be Oregon State, Washington State, Gonzaga, a whole bunch of teams from the Mountain West Conference, and like Texas State.
Yep.
So
Boise State, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Colorado State, I think, is in there. San Diego State, New Mexico may be in there. UNLV is not in there. I think they were not invited.
Nope.
I don't believe.
Before we move on, because I know we have to wrap up here. Trend Tacklers Mark wants to know. He says that in football, you judge teams on how they perform in the stats. Is there anything similar in college basketball?
I know the answer, Mark, and it's a definitive yes.
It's a definitive yes
for you. What the key stats are in college basketball?
The key stats in college basketball are the ones I kind of pound on the show here each and every week. First and foremost for me is shooting defense percentage. That's huge. Margin of victory, surprisingly, is real big inside the NCAA basketball tournament. The deeper you go, the more larger the margin of victory is, the more success those teams meet with. But it's largely.
You're talking about the margin of victory within the tournament, or on the season as you advance through
on the season as you advance. But one of the in the stats things that I do that is very, very good, and I'll pass this along to our listeners out there, is in the Sweet 16 round. Very simple math. What you do is you look at the first 2 rounds of the tournament and look at the teams that allowed the fewest amount of points in those first 2 games. They are outstanding. It's because they've got the impetus going because their defense has been built, and that's the direction they're headed. Look for those dogs, those defensive dogs in the Sweet 16 round that have excelled, and usually, generally, almost always dogs for sure. But you're looking at some gaps here where you'll find these dogs that are, they could be wide gaps playing teams that were soft defensively because they won games in 90 to 88 shootouts and stuff like that. So That's my in the stats type thing for the NCAA.
Now you're saying
tournament.
you're saying that's for the Sweet 16. That begins in the Sweet 16.
That's
and you
correct.
look at each individual matchup, Team A versus Team B, whichever team allowed the fewest points in their first two games is to play if it's an underdog.
Just plain simple stupid is what it is, and it just grinds and grinds and wins and wins. And I like it because it's defense, and that's what the teams that are going to move on to the Final Four. They're going to get there largely because of their defense. And so what am I looking at to begin with? I'm looking at the scoring defense, the teams that really, don't allow a lot of points. You got Houston, Duke, right at the top of the list here. Northern Iowa, I don't know if they're even going to be in this tournament or not, but they don't allow anybody anything.
Yeah.
But it's the defensive shooting percentage that's really, really good. And really,
because it means one of two things. Either the teams you're playing can't shoot, which that's going to even out. More importantly, you're forcing bad shots.
Yes, exactly.
You're making them shoot with 2 seconds left on the shot clock.
Yeah, you're making them put up shots that they really don't want to put up.
Yeah,
because
I look at. Do you also take a look at rebounds, including offensive rebounds?
Yes.
And turnovers.
Yeah.
What I look at, it's kind of like in football. I don't look at turnover margin per se in football. I look at turnovers lost as opposed to turnovers recovered. In basketball, it's somewhat similar. I look at the number of the comparison between how many times a team turns the ball over versus its opponent. Now, of course, you do have to take into account pace. A team that plays at a much higher, faster pace is probably going to have more turnovers than the opponent who plays at a much slower pace because there are fewer possessions in the game. But there's a way to equalize that and sort of put it on a it's kind of like the efficiency ratings, points per 100 possessions.
Guys, let's wrap this show up here with what we see. And I sent on the list the script to the guys today, the projected last 4 teams in the tournament and the projected first 4 teams out of the tournament. And this is on the list that I sent. And I'd like to know your comments and your thoughts on these. The last 4 teams in: Texas A&M, New Mexico, Santa Clara, and VCU. Would you guys agree that we will see at least half of those 2 teams, those 4 teams, being part of the last 4 in?
I would say yes. I would say I think Santa Clara has probably played itself in as long as they win one of their games, I think they have a bye until the quarterfinals, I believe. Maybe it's the semifinal. I think it's the quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals.
Yeah, as long as they win one of those games. Yeah, yep. As long and that they win their closing game this weekend. No, their season's over. That's right. Their regular over. New Mexico, depending on how far they go in the tournament, because again, we're talking about a conference that may only get 2 bids, and I'm not sure New Mexico would be the last 4 in. But let's see what happens. How they do. A&M, with their win over Kentucky the other night, may have gotten themselves in, certainly now, especially if they can win twice in the SEC tournament. So I would say most likely Texas A&M and Santa Clara. From
that list. Greg, what do you think? What teams are on the bubble that might be the first 4 in? The last 4 in, I'm sorry.
Definitely New Mexico and Santa Clara. That's for sure. I think New Mexico is better than Santa Clara. But we'll see. I mean, again, it's going to all depend on the tournament. Yeah. I think they have to I think the bottom line is any team in the Mountain West that wants to be in the tournament has to get to the final. That's it. 3 teams are not getting in. So I think you have to get to the championship. And I think if you do, there is a chance 2 teams in the Mountain West, no matter who those 2 teams are. I think Texas A&M is definitely in it. Like you said, Andy, they had the big win over Kentucky. So that's it. They're done. They're in. And who's the 4th team?
VCU.
I think VCU has to play in the championship game. As long as they lose to St. Louis in the championship game, they have a shot. I'm not saying they're in. Matter of fact, they would be my 4th team out of the 4 you mentioned.
4 out of the 4. Okay.
Yeah, I would be I might have New Mexico as the weakest of the 4, only because they play in a nice Mountain West conference. But right now, there's really no dominating team. And when I take a look at Santa Clara, they split with they went 2-2 against the 2 best teams in the conference, St. Mary's and Gonzaga. And that, to me, is significant compared to what New Mexico did. But New Mexico can certainly.
They didn't beat Gonzaga.
No, they went. They split with St. Mary's and they split with Gonzaga. So they went 2-2.
No, they didn't split with Gonzaga. They lost to Gonzaga.
Oh, Santa
both
Clara.
games.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Santa Clara lost. Right.
Yeah.
St. Mary's is the one that beat Gonzaga. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. That's why St. Mary's is definitely in, but Santa Clara. That's why they got work. They have to beat St. Mary's. They have to. If they don't beat St. Mary's, I don't think they're getting in.
I would say A&M is the most likely of the 4 teams to be in.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, how about the reverse guys that not so much the next 4 out, but looking at this thing from the first 4 out, the first 4 teams that are going to be out of this tournament. This list comprised of Indiana, California, Cincinnati, and Stanford.
That's the next 4 out.
Sorry, Indiana, San Diego State, Auburn,
okay,
and Virginia Tech. Indiana, San Diego State, Auburn, and Virginia Tech. First 4 out. Yay or nay, Greg?
I think Indiana has easily the best chance out of those 4 teams. I think they're in. I don't think they should be, but I think they're going to be in as of today. They still have work to do, but I would put Indiana in. San Diego State's the same thing. They have to get to the championship game to have a shot. Look, we've been talking about Auburn for the past couple of weeks. I think this is an absolute joke that they're even being considered. It's ridiculous.
They're 7-10 in the conference in the SEC. That's number 11.
And that's not even a good SEC this year, That's the point.
Yeah.
I don't think they deserve to. Virginia Tech, no. They'd have to play Duke in the championship game.
They'd go all the way. Andy, what do you think, these 4 teams?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. I mean, Virginia Tech had some opportunities. They are 12th in the ACC, so they have to win. ACC is kind of like I think the ACC in many ways is like the SEC in that they're not as good as they historically have been, but I think the SEC even right now is much better than the ACC. So I would have to say Virginia Tech most likely. I don't even know why they are on this list, to be honest. I don't think that. They're 8 and 9 in a conference. I'm trying to look for. I think they had one really big win this year. Auburn, I'm not overly impressed with. San Diego State's not playing well. Indiana's had its time. I'd say of the 4, Indiana's played in the toughest conference. So if they can get a couple of wins in the tournament, they may have the best chance. Now, we probably have to take a look at those and possibly the next 4 out, because we've already said that most likely of the last 4 in, 2 of those teams won't make it. So we've got to replace them, and they'd probably come from those list of 8 teams. So I would say probably if Indiana can win a couple of games in the Big Ten tournament. And I'll tell you another team that's playing well lately, and that's Cincinnati, the team in the next 4 out. Right. If they can make a nice little run in the Big 12, which arguably you can say that they're the best conference, or the Big 12 or the Big 10, I guess you could say. If Cincinnati can make a nice little run, they might leapfrog the first 4 out and make it to the last 4 in.
I agree. I think you got to watch the Bearcats. They're playing maybe their best basketball of the season right now at the right time. Greg, go one step further. The next 4 out of these 4 basketball teams that we outlined, the next 4 out: Southern Cal, Cincinnati, and Stanford.
Oh,
these would be the guys that would slip in if the ones that were on the first 4 out don't make it. Would any of these 4 teams take their place?
Stanford and Cal, to me, it would be. I'd like to have both those teams play each other for an elimination, because they're pretty even. It's Cincinnati though would clearly be the top out of those 4, and USC's done. They're done. The committee is not going to get them in, especially with their star player leaving. Their top 2 scorers are out. They lost their best player in the first week of the season. And now they've lost their next best player a week ago. So they're done. So USC out. Cal, Stanford, I think they're flip of the coin. I prefer Stanford just because of the fact that I like their coach, and I think they have the best player. The freshman kid that they were able to recruit there is a really good player. But Cincinnati's clearly the best out of those 4 coming from the Big 12.
I concur.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up here. We're going to come back next week, do it again, and then we'll be back a week from Monday. As Greg mentioned, once the selection Sunday has happened, we'll begin to tear these teams down apart a week from Monday here on the Against the Spread podcast. Also, on this network. So until next week, once again.
By the way, the best part, and we can say the best part of Selection Sunday is listening to the selection committee commissioner defend all the bids that make no sense.
Well, the thing this time around, though, is that all these teams stink anyway. So it's like, I don't think anybody's going to care this year. It's the first time I'm never going to care about any of those teams. So, yeah.
I guess when you don't play up to the level you were expected to play and you didn't make the tournament, what else could happen? I mean, who do you blame? You only blame yourself, not the committee.
I would still like to see, some of these mid-majors, you could say a team like a VCU playing in its conference. Remember, if you're playing conference games with a lot of familiarity, and if you can play extremely well where you have only 1 or 2 conference losses, I would like to see the committee go back to the times when they said, you know what, I don't care what conference you're in. If you don't finish at 500, you don't get a bid. Make those conference games mean something over the last part of the season. Because what the heck? These conferences used to be 8 and 10 teams. Now you're talking 14 and 18 teams. So now when you don't have that 50-50 requirement, by definition, you're taking bids away from mid-major conferences that used to get those bids because, number one, they can't schedule games against these major conferences because these major conferences have so many teams that they want to protect those teams that do finish at 8 and 10.
Hear ye, Andy. That's a great point, and I agree 100%. Play at least 500 in your conference, and be
what made this event the event that it's become over the last 40 years are those first and second round upsets, those buzzer beaters.
Yes,
and we've sorely been missing those.
Absolutely. I mean,
by the way, another thing, I would like to see no first round matchups between 2 mid-major teams.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I would not like to see a St. Mary's play a Miami of Ohio, for example.
Yeah.
Let St. Mary's play a power. Let me see. I think that normally right now the teams that are considered the power conferences are the. Let me see here. If I can find it here. Conferences. Okay. The American Athletic Conference, the Atlantic 10, the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the Big East, and the SEC. Those are the 7 power conferences. I would like to see no games between 2 teams that are in one of those minor conferences to begin. Except, of course, in like the 12 through 18 seeds or 12 through 16 seeds where you're going to have the MEAC champ play maybe the Southland Conference champ or something.
Well, guys, next week I'm going to put you on the spot, grill you, and ask you who is going to be the Cinderella team that makes this tournament that came out of nowhere that you think can possibly be that team. Think about it.
Lemoyne.
Lemoyne?
No, I have no idea what they're.
I was going to say, Lemoyne. What conference do they play in? Do they have a basketball team?
I think they play in the Northeast. In fact, I think it's Lemoyne and I think it's in the Northeast Conference. I think it's Lemoyne and Mercyhurst, who are both ineligible for the conference title, but they're eligible to play in the conference tournament. And the word came out that and they are seated 3rd and 4th in the conference. And should they end up being in the championship game, they are going to replay if it's the games between the 1 and 4 seed that they would be playing for the conference championship if in the unlikely scenario the 3 and 4 seeds who are ineligible for the NCAA tournament meet.
Wow, a lot of caveats that work there. We need a lawyer. We need a Philadelphia lawyer. Andy, you went to Penn. You probably know some lawyers up there we can reach out to, I'm sure.
Yeah, but not necessarily for the right reason. No. Let me see if I can find the just very, very quickly. I just want to make sure that is correct, that it is indeed, Mercyhurst and Lemoyne, and it is the Lemoyne Dolphins.
The Dolphins.
Yeah.
Good. I'll sleep tonight knowing that now.
I won't.
All right, guys, I got to get out of here. I know I'll look forward to speaking with you again next week. So until next week, for Greg DePalma from Prime Sports Network and Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com, our good friend Jim Feist, the legend himself from Las Vegas, this is Mark Lawrence reminding you always to remember to bet with your head, not over it.